And we are live. Hello to all my guys, gals, and non-binary pals of audio and also video podcast land. And welcome to another exciting episode of the Bi-Conics, a wrestling podcast where we talk about the professional wrestlings and have a nice, calm discussion about the topics. Fuck that. No, we don't. Why am I lying to you? This is like episode 13 or 14 at this point. So if you haven't been with us from the beginning, welcome. We're happy to have some new folks, but
watch the original ones.
You should really go check out our draft specials because we had a lot to say those 2 days. Oof. Monday Night Raw was a slog to get through. That's in the past. But I am Mikey. I am one of the 5 hosts here at the Bi-Conics. I am also happen to be the head honcho in charge for Vibe Tribe Productions, where you can follow me all over the social medias at Pop Culture Geek or Vibe Tribe Production to follow us collectively, where you can stay up to date on all the projects we got going on. So make sure to give us a like, a follow, and a subscribe. As always, I am joined by my amazing co-host. We're going to go around. They're going to introduce themselves. I'm just going to start with JVL because I can. You're up first.
Hi, I'm JVL. I'm Jon VL. I am on this podcast. I've been here since a while ago, and I talk about wrestling, and I'm one of the older guys on the podcast, so I remember the good old days. You can find me on the socials at the JV Lexicon or Negative H13 or other places, and otherwise just see me looking out into the void, wishing for death.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Demonetized. No, just kidding.
And we've been recording for over a minute. We're good.
Mikey swore in the intro.
That's very true. We're not getting monetized.
We gotta do it again.
No, we're not starting over. And to give a little insight, JVL has been the day one before this was even a project, because we tried to start this. We had 3 episodes in the can, and then life took a hit. So
here we are. What, a year late? A year and 4 more people later.
That's what it took.
Honestly, that's what it took. It was just like
we had to open our relationship up a lot bigger to be able to make this work.
And it just so happened we picked the right people to share in our intimacy of wrestling.
It's even funnier because I'm reading the Google Doc that Jon sent, the professor sent, and the first one I happen to look down towards is wrestling finishers that are basically sex positions.
That's coming soon, folks. Just you wait.
But that's the first thing I read. I went, "What the fuck is this?"
Small package.
Yeah, it has a whole different meaning, a numerous amount of ways. But speaking of the before we get
crucifix pin.
Oh my goodness. Before I get doxxed and someone comes crashing through my door. Speaking of Professor, Professor, you're up next.
My name's Jon. I'm affectionately known as the Professor. I'm on a handful of things here with the Vibe Tribe. I'm working on a few YouTube lists here, which you've just heard the topic of one of them. You can find me on the TikTok. I started making things there. I tell stories from time to time as well. And my last name has 11 letters. Good luck with that.
I just wanted to Scrabble with it earlier. It was great.
It was
157 points.
They look great without beards, guys. Like, without beards.
There's photos out there of us without beards.
Good.
You hear the beards on the podcast. They're so orally just amazing.
And last but certainly not least, rounding out the third of the bearded trio, not including me, is Minnie.
The Beardos.
I almost said his government name on this podcast.
We're 3 Beardos. There we go. How's it going, guys? I'm Minnie Moss 218, also known as my government name is Evan. I really don't care what you guys address me as. You guys can catch me out here in the Vibe Tribe. I run A Walk Among Gods. I'm in the Academy. I do things here. But right now, we're on the best wrestling podcast you guys can check out on this side of the Mississippi or the other side of the Mississippi, because we're on both sides of the country. That's right. This is the Bi-Conics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about that for a second. So, that ass. It's America's ass. That is all I will say.
This random conversation that happened out of nowhere. By the way, check out this ass. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
It's great checking in on. I was dealing with a lot of family shit over a course of 5 or 6 days in a row, and every now and then jumping on the group chat and catching bits like that. Oh, that makes me laugh. What are we talking about?
Random GIF.
Exactly. I don't know what that is. Oh, there's LA Knight. Yep, that's America's ass right there. What are we talking about? Why am I saying this out loud?
He's going to win Money in the Bank, guys. Watch.
This is a tangent. I agreed that, what was this, a few months ago we were talking, LA Knight needs to be pushed correctly, and the Gatorade Bray Wyatt, what the fuck is this match? Not work. Maybe set him back a year. But the last 6 weeks or so, you can see the momentum and sort of, oh, they're going to do something. I really hope they do something. 'Cause I agree with JVL. Like, they owe him something for not booking him in LA when they had the chance for WrestleMania.
On top, there was a cartoon someone put out recently too. They were showing like LA Knight standing there and things bouncing off him, like bad book Max Dupree, all these other things they've done to him since he's gotten here. And he's basically gotten himself over to the point of even a week or two ago where they're piping in boos over the crowd popping for him, and they're visibly turning the mics down in the arena so you don't hear it on the live broadcast, but you see the fan cast and everyone's yelling out "yeah" every time he kicks somebody. They're all with him, like saying his catchphrase. This is the perfect way. You set him up, you do the heel turn with Bianca and the Street Profits, you've got it built. Like, why aren't you doing it?
I saw a thing where it's 80% of WWE fans want LA Knight to win Money in the Bank.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm calling it right now. I'm looking at the men's competition. I'm like, LA Knight should win. And then I'm looking over at the women. I'm like, yeah, it's no contest. Becky's winning this one.
I don't know. I don't know.
Is there anybody else you would give that briefcase to that is currently...
Yes.
Now,
honestly,
in my opinion, I want LWO to hold the briefcases, but we know that WWE and Vincent Kennedy McMahon doesn't like brown people. So I'm just saying.
They're doing horrible shit to the brown people. Like, why?
Unless you're Rey Mysterio, you're the only brown person that exists in WWE.
What are they doing? This is, again, sorry. I would love to talk more about LA Knight's ass as the cisgendered white male. But
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Why?
I'm with you there, John.
Why is Mustafa Ali getting screwed on NXT and on SmackDown?
Because his last name's Ali.
I mean, on NXT, he's doing fairly better. He actually won on Tuesday. He won his match against Joe Gacy, which was actually a pretty decent match. We're eventually down the line, we're going to get Wesley versus Mustafa Ali for the North American Championship in NXT, which I'm all here for.
Can't remember the draft. Was Mustafa Ali a free agent?
Yep, he is a free agent.
I don't remember.
He's a free agent. Dana Brooke is a free... No, she was on... She got drafted to the Raw.
If that does not answer your question of why he's being shouted on both SmackDown and NXT, like, I don't remember where he was drafted.
They're just... Dude's incredible.
He's really talented, but
it's amazing. I thought Night of Champions was a fantastic showcase. It was great, and then...
He's going through, like, the early stage of what Ricochet had to do with a credible wrestler, but they just buried him and just used him to sell spots.
He's become Dolph Ziggler 2.0, being sent back down, doing amazing things now in NXT, and he's not going to get a run out of it. It's insane.
So, are we on topic, or are we just saying things out loud to vent right now before we start?
We're talking about wrestling, but...
we started with America's ass.
We started with America's ass. We went to how they're
Mustafa Ali and...
Yet another... We're just basically...
No more Omos.
We're summarizing the group text of the last 10 days.
Okay, let's talk about this. Yeah, go ahead.
Why is Baron Corbin so cardboard on the microphone?
He is... I don't understand. It is...
Have you seen his cooking stuff on his Instagram?
I was like, where's this man's?
I don't understand. I remember... Because I didn't watch wrestling, and we've talked about it in this podcast, but I always knew who he was. Great wrestler. Great imposing figure. Can't sell a car at a deal... Like, horrible. Can sell nothing. And like
he's Vince McMahon's perfect promo.
Dude's cardboard.
Yeah, that's why. The amount of stuff that I've noticed on that entire topic, I've noticed in the last couple of weeks on the Vince influenced ones, and I'm going back to like people saying the Simon Miller Classic. Nobody talks that way, and you can tell, especially like in the stuff they ripped off and redid this week on Raw. Is like the stuff that like Katana Chance and Caden Carter were saying were like made no sense whatsoever. The syntax was off. They were trying to like verbally diarrhea out their mouth to get it out. There was no feeling to it, and that's why he's cardboard. Is he's having to memorize this crap as he's going out there versus just speaking from the heart. And he sounds like the NXT promo for this week. He sounded like he was trying to be too verbose, too descriptive because no one understands why he's in fucking NXT.
bit of him walking through NXT and everyone being scared that Baron Corbin's here and showing him this quote unquote respect. They're all selling and acting the hell out of that moment. Baron Corbin looks like RoboCop, looking all over the fucking place, not even trying.
Okay.
He knows he's got to hit this mark. Look here. Stop here. He's going through. He's the actor that you just put on camera for the first time that has done a bunch of stage stuff and doesn't know what to do in front of a camera.
Take a breath. Breathe. Like, do anything.
If you breathe, you could sneeze, and then Vince McMahon will fire you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But I'm going to be completely honest here. I think all three shows, I'm unapologetically an NXT fan. I'm always going to give it a little grace, but even I can admit honestly, NXT, to me, it makes the most logical sense right now, which is saying a whole lot because that's your developmental brand. I don't know, man. I've been enjoying NXT more because I'm like, okay, this is not the best thing, but it makes logical sense for the most part. I can follow along of what's going on. Main roster is like, you have Roman Reigns, and then everyone else is like, just here.
You don't have Roman Reigns.
That's true.
He's never there.
That's the only...
Roman Reigns shows up, takes 15 minutes to walk to the ring, says 4 words, and then leaves.
Or gets kicked in the face.
Or gets super kicked in the face, which actually makes people happy, which is great.
I want to talk about this whole accidental super kick trope that's driving me nuts because it's a cop out.
It happened twice in a week, if I remember. Yeah, it happened twice in the last 2 weeks.
It happens once a week now. On every he accidentally got him again. What? Open your eyes. I don't.
Isn't that the usual progression from everyone uses a super kick to someone's going to get super kicked accidentally because it's a move used by every wrestler under the face of Earth right now?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sure what I don't like more right now. That all the super kicks are all the Canadian destroyers. Because like I watched
the Code Reds.
I was watching. It was the AEW Fatal 4-Way Championship match. I watched the Pillars match, and I watched like a condensed. It was on TikTok. It was a 3-minute TikTok of the match just sped up, and I just watched a sequence of 15 Canadian destroyers in a row.
But here's the thing, though. Like, normally I hate that kind of stuff, right? But to me, I was just like, maybe it was because of the fact that Double or Nothing royally pissed me off of how bored I was up until we got to surprisingly enough, once we got to the TBS championship match, from there on, I was like, okay, this is pretty decent. Everything before that was fine, but I was just like, and we all agree that unsanctioned match was the worst match of the whole pay-per-view. Sabu was there for 2 seconds, and then he was gone he came in, he
fell off the top rope, but he was done.
Yeah. I was just like, it was so tamed. It was so tamed for an unsanctioned.
So I looked it up. Sabu was 60 something. Sabu was up there. And what sucks, and along with JVL being the old guy who remembers, there's a sense of like, I wanted to see Sabu go in there and just skin someone alive with a piece of barbed wire.
This was the most tame unsanctioned match ever.
Sabu's here to get a check and throw a chair at somebody, which is fine. I'm glad you're getting paid. That's okay.
But even the chair shots, man.
He was not going to do like his walk up off the chair and flip over the ropes thing. He can't do that.
No,
so
I'm just glad
he's 8 years old. Yeah, he's not doing that.
But to your point, Minnie, so you watched that on TikTok and sped up. Building of the match, in that 4 Pillars match, yes, it was a ton of Canadian destroyers at once, but they were all on max. So it was them nodding at the fact of, we understand that this is insane. We're going to go to the top of this of, you can hit one, then I can hit one, then I can hit one. And that made sense storyline-wise, having built to that point of the frustration of all 3 of them hitting moves on MJF and nothing going down. So to the point where they did 3 freaking Canadian destroyers. And also, props to MJF for taking 3 Canadian destroyers.
It's definitely a lot. That move is a lot more like doing it over and over again is a lot more than taking 14 super kicks because it just is cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Taking 3 Canadian destroyers is a lot. I definitely.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the microphone work too during that match because I was laughing so hard. It was like MJF is like, Snatch, what the fuck? I've never popped so hard.
It had been like in other matches where like the super kick's done to like random people throughout the match. If you're in like a ladder match, someone gets super kicked, then someone else gets super kicked, and that's boring. If it was like Canadian Destroyer, one person, and then somebody else did another Canadian Destroyer, and like shown as like a regular move, that's when I'm with you. Like it's just not good. But in the context of that specific match, it made sense of we're all gonna do this thing to this one freaking heel beat his ass, and so it fits like narratively into it, and so it's a little I feel it's a little different than the super crap, which is it's a mid move. It's a move that you get people that take it well, that don't. You get the accidental kicks and stuff like that. It's literally become like a brick or a chop. It's not.
I don't know. I don't know the name.
That was such a good finisher back in the day.
Minnie might know the name of this because I can't quite remember. There's a name for a move where the person who it's being done to is doing all the work, like a Canadian destroyer. So basically, MGF is the one doing all the work. It's just you got to get over and jump, right? So MGF doing that so many times is a Herculean task.
It could be like a sunset flip.
That's
there's a term.
There's a term in
combat. This type of move where it's done in the inverse, where yes, I'm doing this to you, but you're the one that is actually going to lift up and do the thing. And I have bad podcasting. I'm not going to look it up right now, and I'm sure there's someone out there who's screaming it in.
I have no idea. Yeah.
To the people that constantly message us and tell us how great we're doing, let us know in the comments what exactly is happening. Okay.
If you haven't messaged us, please message us and tell us how good we're doing.
We need the reinsurance, guys.
We do. Shout out to Amador, who had a whole hour conversation with me and JVL the other day, just on the pure chaos that this podcast is.
We had some great feedback on the podcast. People who I know listen to it, actually.
Your hot friends.
My hot friends, who you might see on this podcast someday. Hey, hot friends, if you're listening, there's a few hot friends on.
We need the clicks.
We need the clicks, honestly. Okay.
Give us our thumbnails for YouTube.
There is a psychological study where if you have hot people on, it's more clicks, but we don't got time to go into that. Speaking of, okay, so I have
that close little JBL.
Where are we? Where did we go?
I'm gonna tell you where we're gonna tell. I'm gonna tell you where we're gonna go. No, we're not Italian, but okay. I've been sitting on this for the last couple of days. I thought about it.
Charlotte Flair?
Yeah, let's just go there.
Okay.
So. Because we were off camera, we were talking about what happened on SmackDown because not a lot happened. I have questions because I'm trying to, outside of the Bloodline storyline, I don't understand what the point of having the Yes Boys be a part of it, but it is what it is because they're shitty heels. But Asuka gets the new designed women's title. It is officially called the WWE Women Heavyweight? No, not Women's Heavyweight. It's just the WWE Women's Undisputed Women's Championship. Listen, WWE hasn't made a great belt in a very long time, so at this point, I don't really critique on the aesthetics of it. It is what it is. It's nice to see. It's nice.
Here, forgot the announcer's name. The British announcer who's on SmackDown.
Wade Barrett.
Who's really funny. Oh, look at it. It's beautiful.
You can tell I don't believe it. Wait.
Yeah, look at that beautiful belt. That looks
honestly
exactly like the belt.
Wade Barrett is just, bro, the British wrestling scene has some beautiful titles. Go take a look at Progress Wrestling's titles. They're pretty good. But the point being, so Adam Pearce does this whole ceremony, and good on Asuka for getting the new design title. Like, homegirl deserves it. And then it's not even a second, but while it's being put on her, Charlotte Flair's music hits. And basically, the segment's, Asuka versus Charlotte. And I'm like, God damn it.
We can't think of anything else. Let's do this again because Asuka's lost to Charlotte 3 times in a row.
And I want to say, I'm actually going to defend Charlotte on this one. I don't blame her. I blame the book. No, hear me out. Here comes JVL.
He's pulling the ear out. What you say better be good.
See, I blame the bookers in the sense that they're booking this, but also they are giving into her pedigree because of the name for it. They can't stand their ground and be like, no. So let's just talk because
Can I ask you a question?
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Outside of the Charlotte Asuka thing, we now have 2 undisputed titles, but there are other titles on the same level as them in the company. How are they undisputed?
You're talking to the same company that had the SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw and the Raw Women's Championship on SmackDown for how many weeks?
That just says brands, and that's the thing. I understand they're brand specific, but you can steal them back and forth. You're not in the name of the title on the placard saying this is the undisputed title. You cannot dispute that this is the title, except that we have a dispute because there's another title of the same lineage and length and height of this darn thing.
We agree that Rhea's going to get the women's heavyweight championship.
Eventually,
The
there's going to be a
Divas
title
do.
that says this is literally the title. No, literally this one is the title. No, literally that one. And they're all belts that say literally the title.
It's 4 different belts that just goes all the way down the person, basically, to be able to literally in.
And Roman's gonna hold it for 945,000 days.
And he's gonna do the Rambo thing. He's gonna be hella old, and I think so. And we might have talked about this on this podcast. Similar to boxing, there came a point in the '90s where the titles didn't mean anything because there's 50,000 titles for halfweight classes and cruiserweight classes and mixed up stuff like that. And it was just to make fun of professional wrestling. The titles don't mean anything. Look how many titles they have. Look at your sport. They're garbage. It's hard for me to watch UFC because the titles don't mean anything. Because like Roman Reigns, they defend it once every 2 years. And we make you Conor McGregor's a millionaire and fought once. Like, it's bullshit.
That's why PFL's dope, but that's a whole different conversation. I like a whole different conversation.
Respect PFL and one championship and all those other promotions.
They want to put belts on each brand, but yeah, I don't think they can think of any other word other than undisputed. I think it's like
Buy a thesaurus.
They could have used the word.
it's Vince McMahon who
unified?
got mad at a burrito. Do you think this is really gonna he's gonna buy a thesaurus?
Unified.
It's not unified.
This is the WWE
The
unified
one on Roman
World
is.
Heavyweight Championship.
The one on Roman is unified because it's the Universal and the WWE Championship unified. It's the unified heavyweight title. And then you have the World Heavyweight title over on the other side.
Now you
The
need
women's
like
ones are a little harder.
1/4 of the title.
We're about to unify another. We're about to unify another set of titles because we're getting Ronda and Shayna
They should have
versus.
unified to begin with. There was no
Oh
reason
my
to-
god, the Ronda Shayna promo.
Which one do you want to talk about? Where they literally called the tiny girls Katana and Kaden little like munchkins from Munchkin Land, or
Hey,
yeah,
the promos might have sucked, but that match was actually really good. Those two are.
I ate crow because literally in the text thread I was just like, oh cool, Katana and Kaden are going up against Shayna and Ronda. They're gonna get squashed.
They're so small compared to those. I was watching. I'm like, the size difference is insane.
I remember telling Minnie this when he called me on Friday when we talked about this briefly. I was just like, those are really like, that is the actual that is an actual women's tag team you have in WWE. Like, this is their bread and butter. They have been mastering their craft for the last 4 years and they actually work as a team and do tag team stuff.
But they also looked like they wanted to be there.
Exactly.
They did
Absolutely
an
right.
intensity.
It's about damn time. I love those
Baszler
women.
on the mic is similar to Baron Corbin on the mic. It's a sense of I don't believe or care anything you say.
And she's
And you're-
150,000 times better than Ronda.
Look at, yes.
Well, then Ronda talks.
Look
at
Because Ronda sells tickets.
still though.
It's money. That's legitimately what it is.
This is all I want from this unification match because we know that Ronda and Shayna are going to win. I just don't want it to be a squash because Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, I'm just like, I love those two women individually, but
Great.
Oh, the match where they won the NXT. We watched that match live where they won the NXT belts. They're really good at what they do.
that
That's
women's
good
match,
performance.
yeah, that women's tag team match was pretty decent. It just sucked where it was placed on the card because this came right after the unsanctioned match between Grayson Waller and Johnny Gargano too. And that preceded also before that match was the Fatal 5-Way for the North American title. I'm like, you can't follow that with those two
Probably
matches.
one of the best matches of both days of NXT and WrestleMania.
God, that Fatal
Hard
5-Way.
changing your back, Professor. One thing I did notice, though, like you're saying, Shayna's terrible on the mic in that respect, and she can't do much like that. I've watched her on the other like online stuff she's done in Twitch and like Up Down. It's not any different. That's actually how she talks and how she relates. So that's why to me, I'm like, there's a hard way to, if she can't get past her own being herself,
Sure.
how is she going to get better?
Not to totally dissect someone who I don't want to say she's struggling, but not to sound like I'm punching down because that's not what I want this to sound like.
She's going to break her.
You have to put these. I'm going to say this, and Vince would never do this, and you guys know what I'm saying. You have to put these wrestlers in a position to succeed, not embarrass them so they grow. And anyone who's a teacher, Mikey, you'll understand this too. You don't. I'm not going to. I don't. Days of I'm going to frustrate you until you quit or grow. It's not going to work. And particularly, you're doing it live and everything's at risk, so you're just going to burn these. You're going to burn out your audience base.
we
and the
just-
people on the mic don't learn anything.
Within the last year and a half, we just saw that happen to somebody who left and is currently your AEW Women's Champion. That's what happened with Toni Storm. because she and Charlotte were in the stupid feud, and every single week Tony was getting embarrassed, like getting pies thrown at her, being called short. I was still mad.
And back in the 90s, maybe even the 80s, they would just not have you talk.
Oh no, they still would. If Vince didn't like you, like Marty Jannetty, they'd force him to talk or be anything like that. If Vince saw something in you, he'd get you a manager, which they don't do now.
That's what I'm saying. There would be a manager or a mouthpiece, or like Brock's great for the first 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, Brock's going to do something fucking weird.
That's why he just grabs the mic and says, "Say something stupid, Paul." Gives the mic to Paul Heyman.
I see what we're saying, and I'm a little out of pocket. I apologize, but I see it as someone I don't want to. I feel like they could do so much more if they were coached and directed in a way, as opposed to just here, read this out loud. Good luck. Yeah, they're going to be cardboard every time. What are you doing?
It would also help too if you actually utilized all your talent outside of one major story. But it seems that WWE would actually need writers for that to happen. Apparently, it's not that hard. And that's why I'm enjoying NXT, because I still have lots of questions. I still have lots of critiques. And I thought NXT was going to be doomed for a little bit because literally the draft, as I put it in heavy air quotes, it really took a lot of big players that I could, like the important people that have been making NXT happen the last year and a half or so. Granted, I have questions. I don't know what's going on with Braun Breaker and Seth. Like, when we're getting that? Are we getting it on Monday? Is it going to be at the Great American Bash? Like,
he's going to show up on Raw on Monday and attack Seth. I think that's the next step in it.
So we can officially say he's probably going to main roster now, which is fine. After losing to Carmelo at Stand and Deliver and then losing cleanly again at Battleground, I'm like, I think Braun's ready to move, because honestly, there's nothing else for him to do right now in NXT. But yeah, it's like they don't have any other ideas to do. Charlotte comes back, immediately goes for the title. I'm slowly enjoying, because I like Bianca slowly turning back into her heel persona that she had in NXT. And as long as that's what the direction they're going for, because it works. Because the shit talker Bianca Belair, like, I'm the baddest, I'm the best. And I was like, girl, like, it gave me those iconic moments. I was like, having her be heel would be great. And then, honestly, turn Montez and Angelo Dawkins heel too. Like, they don't have to be complete. I think so. Not even like super heelish, because you can just have them be the archetype of the shit talking, confident heels, because that will also work.
I agree. I feel like they've held back some because they're fun as hell. I love watching them. They're probably my favorite top 2-3 tag team to watch, period. Since I've started rewatching in the last year. Every time it's just electric. But I feel like they've been tamped down. Like they've been, hey, keep it neutral, go crazy in your intros, but don't get too big otherwise, because we don't want my evidence of this is one of the massive clusterfuck promos from SmackDown was when there were, 15 guys in a locker room. Sammy and Kevin KO are just trying to talk to each other.
Kevin Owens is my hero. He's like having he's having a whole ass panic attack. It's great. It was crazy. I was like, what the fuck?
Being tired of old school wrestling shit and just it's the funniest thing ever.
I was gonna say. Makes this funny, breaking the fourth wall. I was just trying to talk to my friend, and all of you showed up. Where were you?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So realistically, who is actually going to get this chance? Because I'm looking at these tag teams in this gauntlet. I was just like, Vince does not like brown people, because I want LWO to get this shot, but they're not. I see the Street Profits. I'm like, that's a safe bet. I'm like, I also see the Yes Boys getting this opportunity. But then everybody else involved, I'm like, not a fat chance.
Who are the 1980s heels? Pretty vacant? Pretty deadly?
Pretty deadly, or the Yas Boys.
Yeah, the Yas Boys.
Okay, I got a joke.
Again, gay or European, Professor.
I have something that's actually funny. So I was at Buffalo Wild Wings with my site supervisor for where I
Holy
work.
shit, that's hysterical.
Thanks, JVL. He's never seen wrestling before. This dude is like, he's ghetto. I'm gonna put it that way. Never seen wrestling before. And we're sitting there, and he turns, and he sees on one of the screens playing professional wrestling. It was a 6-man tag with Pretty Deadly and Austin Theory, and he goes, "Who the fuck are those guys?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a tag team called Pretty Deadly." And he goes, "Why are they wearing women's clothes?" I'm like, oh, it's just their thing, dude. He goes, you watch this shit? Yeah. And he just gave me the most like weird look, and then got back and was like, just drinking his beer. I was like, well, that was a.
I kid you
interesting way
not,
to
like
start it.
us in the professional wrestling, those of us that watch it, like to us, this crazy ass shit is normal. It was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. You have Pretty Deadly and basically like not even crop tops. It's like barely a crop top.
It's a crop top. It's perfect.
It's a dickie. It's like
long
Dicky
sleeves.
with sleeves.
I was just like, we had the Pretty Deadly dress in dickies. We had a gay wedding between Chuck and Daddy Ass himself.
Like, those two are those are the heels I grew up watching and hating. Where those
Yeah.
really pretty look. It's an echo of the Hollywood blondes. Like it's
The
perfect.
body donnas.
Yeah, body
Oh,
donnas.
so good. You know what, Professor? That is an excellent segue because that's what the remainder of this episode's going to be.
Hey, let's do it.
We're just going to talk about all the things that we love in professional wrestling. Prior to the recording of this episode, I had all my co-hosts do a little bit of homework or at least wing it for the next 2 hours or so. And we, as a crew, wanted to dedicate most of this episode for you, the listening audience, to get to know us a little bit better. You got to know us a little bit when we reviewed the end of 2022 in the year of professional wrestling, where we talked about our likes, our dislikes, who our favorite male and female wrestlers were of the year. But now we're going to extend that category a little bit. So we're all going to have a discussion, and we're going to go down of who our favorite, all-time favorite, top 5 male, top 5 female, favorite matches, favorite gimmicks, favorite archetypes, wherever the conversation decides to lead us.
God damn it.
What?
Nothing. I'm just filling out the rest of it as we're going along here. I'm doing my homework later.
Oh,
Procrastination, IRL teacher here. Hi. So the procrastination is real.
the hard thing too is if you could talk to yourself for 3 days about one of these, right?
I may have.
We know you did.
Like from 1995 until 2000, it was this, but from 2001 to 2000, they had a great. So it's
Well, and
nailed down specifically. It's tricky.
I asked Mikey specifically in the first couple of categories, I'm like, did you mean current or did you mean all time?
And I was like, a little bit of both.
Not fucking longer.
I was like, a little bit of both, but whatever you want. There is no right or wrong answer here unless you say something out of pocket, then you're wrong. But
If anyone says Hulk Hogan, they're off the podcast.
yeah, you're off the podcast.
Good. Terry Bollea.
God.
Good save.
Oh no! Joff, I am sorry. Minnie, Joff is going to have to edit around that part. Don't make the job harder for the man.
Totally. Why would you edit that out? That was hilarious. Like, if you say Hulk Hogan, you're off the pockets. God damn it, leaves.
Here's the thing. Oh no. Oh my God, Joff, I am so sorry because it takes him a while to get everyone masked individually into the frames.
There's gotta be a way to program a Discord third party, whatever, that just has a trigger word. And if you say the trigger word, you get kicked off the server.
Be like,
Hulk
leave.
Hulk Hogan. Ah.
Anyways, so now that we're still going to do shits and giggles as the rest of this episode goes on, but I'll go, I guess I'll go first just to get it out of the way. So this one was a little bit tough because most of my favorite wrestlers, male and female, tend to come from the last 5-7 years or so, like when I really started getting into wrestling, because I'm familiar with the all-time greats of the different eras, but this one was tough. So I'm going to start this off with my number 5. This one's actually going to be a weird number 5. So this one is going
foot lettuce.
I'm the only one that probably knows this individual because I try to keep up with independent wrestling.
I'm Mikey. I watch independent wrestling. I watch NXT and I watch Impact and all these other fun things.
Did you pick 5 instead of 1?
Did no one read the prompt? I said pick your top 5, but if you only picked,
It says pick your favorite.
John, read the line above that where it says pick the 5 of every category.
Oh,
and then
you see, I did the bad student thing. I went right to the question, not the. All right.
Do we want to do 5 male, then always do the 5 male, then go to 5 female, not all
let's
at
all
once?
do 5 males, and then let's all do 5 female. And
and then
It's a long weekend, JBL.
it is a long weekend.
God damn it. Anyways, my number
My
5.
joint's acting up. I don't know if I can do this all.
My number
Ski team.
my
Ski
nu-
team.
my number 5 wrestler comes from Progress Wrestling. I'm a sucker for like weird ass character choices, and I'm gonna give it to Cara Noir as one of my personal favorites. If you don't know who that is, look it up on the Googles. Wrestling style is very fun. Fuck it, he's literally the British version of Stardust, but like he only dresses up in this character for the big pay-per-view matches. Otherwise, he just dresses normally. He has full-on makeup, and he comes out like Dalton Castle with the wings. He is known as the Black Swan. It is incredibly weird, but he is my number 5. So there, I got through that despite all the shenanigans. I hate you so much. All right, we're going to popcorn this so I get to pick. So JVL, you're up.
Number 5.
Wow.
So for me on these, one, I didn't know if I was doing current or not, but I'm doing these based on like sentimentality versus maybe even because we all know the greats of all the things we've gone through that, like that type of thing. And they may pop up in here, who knows? But my number 5 wrestler of all time, male wise, in WWE specifically, right? This is WWE specifically. So we're
Sure.
talking about independent there, but I remember the categories on the sheet was WWE and non-WWE. So I'm just confirming which category we're in.
You know what? I can rectify that, but the rest of my picks will be WWE. So let's just start there.
I'm just trying to like figure because I did the homework. I'm just
Go. Number 5, WWE. Go.
Repo Man. No, honestly, for me, I can't be Simon Miller. I can't be Repo Man. I'm going back to this one is going back to my childhood, but like growing up in the late 80s, like early 90s, the first kind of little bit that went around there. And it's not to do with skill or anything else or something else to do with it, but I always loved watching the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Promo wise, even in the ring, he was really good. I really enjoyed that as a concept. Now, him as a person now, total piece of shit. Like, we already know that's going on. Like, full piece of shit. But
Sure.
that character worked so well, and it was the one I had to hate him. He was against all the good guys when I was growing up. He was amazing. He was so good at pulling you in and keeping you involved, and he was not given any credit for it. So that is my number 5 pick. WWE.
Yes, WWE. Alrighty. Professor, you're up next. Number 5.
Number 5. I'm glad I had too many picks then. I will also
Too
go all the way
many
back to my childhood. I actually, since I'm old now, I can't remember a lot of this wrestler's matches. I remember this wrestler's gimmick and attitude and how much fun they were having. I actually had their toy when I was a kid in the 80s, and I remember playing with it and just loving this guy. It was Coco Beware.
Oh,
If you don't know Coco Beware was a massive, gorgeous black man who walked out there with a giant parrot in beautiful white suits and colored hair and whatever, and just had these awesome promos and attitude. He was a great worker in the ring. Was in the got in the Hall of Fame. I want to say I don't even know if I have anyone else. A little while ago, but not a bad. I haven't heard a bad thing said about him as a worker and performer.
Parrot was a dick.
The parrot was an asshole. Parrots are probably assholes, but always super fun. I always remember tuning in and watching on early Saturday mornings when that's when wrestling was a thing, and watching Coco Beware. And I remember getting that toy and being like, I love this guy. This is great. So if we're going top 5, for me, I'm starting there.
And last but certainly not least, number 5, Minnie, who you got for WWE male?
Number 5, I have the Shockmaster. No,
WWE.
I'm just messing around. No,
Fell on his ass.
I
He
still
was when
might
he was
get
Tugboat.
I still might get some shit for this, but my number 5 is Chris Benoit when he was wrestling.
Retweeting right now.
It's because I grew up watching a lot of before he went a little nuts, but that's a whole different story. Just a little as an understatement, but I did watch a lot of him. He was one of my favorites. Watching him win the title, going out there and hugging Eddie, everything else that he did as an in-ring performer, one of the best of his era. As a person, we all know what happened there. We're not going to talk about it. But as a pure in-ring performer, he's my top 5.
I feel like the Paul Heyman sentiment, which you might have seen, where there's someone in the crowd that's asking him about Chris Benoit, if you've heard that. That kind of speaks for a lot of fans, where incredible worker, incredible performer.
But fucking.
But fuck you. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
All right, Mikey. Number 4 in WWE.
I know.
Not independent WWE.
Yes. Okay. So let's backtrack. I'm not going to spend too much. My number 5 for WWE, I'm actually going to piggyback off Minnie. Chris Benoit was also my number 5 in WWE.
Oh, look at that.
So I don't need to say it. My number 4 is actually So here's the thing. So there was a period of my time where I started when I was in high school and I was watching wrestling. This was in the like 2009, 2010, 2011. And then once I went to college after that, I stopped and didn't get back into it until 2015, 16 or whatever. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding this individual, but I really enjoyed a lot of their work. My number 4 for WWE, and just specifically his time in WWE, I have to go with Punk. CM Punk is my number 4. I think for me personally, I think what won me over was the Straight Edge Society bit was great. But I think what set it over was the pipe bomb and then his feud with John Cena that kind of solidified it as, oh, damn, this is amazing shit. This is professional wrestling storytelling and nonsense that I love so much. My number 4 for WWE is going to be CM Punk.
Cornelius Magnifico Punk.
His first name's Cornelius? That's unfortunate.
It is.
It used to be Yukon Cornelius, but that was a little too much.
I really enjoyed his stupid character on Stephen Amell's show Heels as the Possum Man. It's so fucking...
The Possum Man was so good.
And he's coming back for season 2, so it's going to be fun.
There we go. He doesn't have to be on AEW all the time on Collision. Let's go. My number 4. My number 4, this is jump into the Attitude Era. There's the usuals up there. Austin, Rock, Undertaker, all that stuff. Taker means a lot to me in a lot of ways. But I feel like on this list, like he's a favorite of mine, but he wouldn't make the list of like ones that really spoke to me as being that part. It was just fun to watch. My Attitude Era guy that I have to put here at number 4, not Benoit and other things, it was Edge. Early Edge. Because I watched him from when he started as like the silent, like autistic character that basically came through the crowd all the way through till Brood Edge to he went to Goofy Wrestling with Christian. He ran the gamut through my entire time of watching this and then losing him after being the Dick Rated R superstar for so long and like hating that. And then his comeback at the Rumble and like there is so much emotion tied to him because he's one of the few that I've watched his entire career from start to finish. I've been aware of it and just seeing the growth, the change, hearing about him as a human being, as much as he was an asshole in real life with the whole stuff with Lita, and then like how he's grown since he's actually become an adult and figured his own life out and all that stuff. It's crazy to me that this man has given so much to the business and also to being an ambassador in so many ways to the sport. So Edge is my number 4.
Crazy as much as we don't like him. His interview on the Logan Paul's podcast, really good.
So good.
I'm upset that I actually like some of the wrestlers that have gone on and I'm watching these interviews. I'm like, damn it, Logan Paul, I hate you, but this is a fun interview. All right, Professor, who you got for your number 4?
So my number 4, I had to differentiate between a WE era and a WCW era. I'm going to go, for me, because this is when I was watching a lot of wrestling, WCW Razor Ramon was cool as hell. And even as the heel and bad guy, which of course I knew good guys and bad guys and whatever then, but I just never saw Razor Ramon as the heel. I always sided with Razor Ramon. I was always like, yeah, I agree with you. I'm all in. Yeah, you're just going to put good guys through tables, and I'm going to be okay with that. And I love that guy. The attitude, the jokes, the being on the mic, I fell in love with that guy then, and I was very sad when he passed away, and I knew health issues and whatnot. And I think... And you could talk about this, before the NWO had 50 members, and it seemed like everyone had a different week of being in the NWO, when it was Diesel, Razor Ramon, and Hollywood almost said it, then that's when I think that action was at its peak and was the most fun.
On top of also having the most protected finisher in all professional wrestling, I think second. No, it's even more protected than the One-Winged Angel. Nobody ever kicked out of the Razor's Edge.
Or the leg drop.
Yeah,
we don't talk about it.
It was just one of the best.
And then,
to hear the real Scott Hall talk, and then to hear Razor Ramon and go, what? The character dedication and the talents of that guy, and genuinely taking care of folks, even though it looked like he was throwing them around like rag dolls and whatnot.
He was one of the safest workers ever. Yeah,
that's what everything I've heard has been like. Yeah, no one ever got hurt. Always took care of folks. Took the shot.
1-2-3 kid.
Yeah. Yes, that's still one of the greatest matches. Pulled him out of the crowd and did this thing. So
69'd him.
Incredible. So that's my number 4.
Speaking of wrestlers who just recently passed away, RIP to the Iron Sheik. We didn't mention that earlier.
Sheik's a big deal. Rest in peace, Iron Sheik.
The greatest.
Professor the fuck. Whatever.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Uh,
He's such a good heel. I can't say rest in peace, Archie.
the greatest Hogan hater of all time.
And we stand him for that.
We salute you.
My number 4 is one of the greatest of all time, Eddie Guerrero. I didn't watch him for too long. I was really young when he was still around, but going back and rewatching a lot of his stuff, of course, everybody's imitating him now. Smack the chair on the mat, throw the chair to the other dude, knock down. That was incredible when he did that. Of course, the frog splash, everybody's trying to do that. A lot of mono wrestlers are basing their entire careers off what Eddie did. His tag team with Chavo back in the day was awesome. His match against Brock, where he won the title finally, incredible.
Stuff with China.
Yeah. Yeah. Just him battling through the adversities he did and coming back and still be able to perform at a level he did, changing his entire story around. But just an incredible person, an incredible wrestler, one of the greatest of all time. My number 4 is Eddie Guerrero. This top 5 thing sucks because there's so many other wrestlers I want to put on here, but I'm like with JBL, like who spoke to me more than, like I talked about earlier, how like I love John Cena because I watched him debut. He's not even in my top 5, which is crazy for me.
How did you watch him?
I watched that episode of SmackDown.
You watched the SmackDown, but how did you see him?
How did you see him?
No, that was before You Can't See Me. That's when he was still visible.
He was the prototype at that point, yeah.
Yeah, he was still the prototype, doing the protobomb. Yeah, that was pre You Can't See Me.
I love it. Alrighty. So WWE number 3 for male superstar. Okay, I want to put it just not. You know what? Fuck it. This is going to be with a caveat. My number 3 is going to be Jeff Hardy, but I'm specifically talking about Jeff Hardy between late 2007 all the way through 2008, because when we know that Jeff Hardy has had his issues, still has his issues. But to me, that era of Jeff Hardy was the one that spoke to me the most, because I remember going all the way back doing my history of professional wrestling. That was probably my favorite version of Jeff Hardy because, and this is to me, this is one of the pivotal wrestling moments of when you talk about wrestling history for me personally. This one is like a key point of, this is how you build a story. This is what it was. And that's when Jeff won that WWE title at Armageddon in that triple threat between him, Triple H, and Edge. Like, that match alone was good, but leading all the way up to it, the story bits of it is what made me like Jeff Hardy. Is like he constantly kept getting screwed. Triple H was being Triple H. Edge was being a dick as usual. And then Vladimir Kozlov got involved in somehow, way, shape, or form. But the point is that the goalpost kept getting moved for Jeff, and leading into that pay-per-view, time and time after again, he kept proving that he was getting screwed for different reasons. And then him finally winning that big one solidified it to me as, damn, this Jeff Hardy is amazing. Fast forward, he had to vacate it because of more issues a couple months later, but that's beside the point. Leading up into that Armageddon match made me realize, I was like, Jeff Hardy is a badass. And, that's my reasoning of why he's my number 3. Just the storytelling leading into that match and just him showing the audience and getting them back on his good side. Because when he came back from all his issues, when he got in trouble, the fans were not feeling him. And so he had to earn their trust back. And leading into Armageddon, he slowly got the fans to get back on his side, and they were rooting for him in that triple threat. And just to hear the uproarious amount of applause when he won that match was that was so beautiful. In that moment, he redeemed himself and was able to, it was a good redemption story. So Jeff Hardy, that era, my number 3.
All right, my number 3, going WWE here. We're going to, it's piggybacking off something Mikey already said here. It's Cheesemonger Punk. Same thing. That run in the 2000s got me back into wrestling after a long pullout. Like, basically, I lost interest, wouldn't watch for a while, and his matches, his stuff in the ECW brand, and then on from there, I could not help but watch. Him coming back at AEW recently in the last couple of years, yes, for all the problems that it's caused, I was, like Ollie Davis, like, emotionally attached to him coming back to wrestling. Like, he embodies what wrestling was, getting me back on board with it. So Chester Montgomery Punk, thank you for what you've done.
Chester or Cornelius?
I'm going to every name for CM. So Cheesemonger's the best so far.
Cheesemonger's a good one too. Cheesemonger's a good one.
Oh my goodness.
Top five lists are so hard because there's people that should be on this list but aren't. But again, it's based on us individually. So with that qualifier, my number 3 is Stone Cold Steve Austin because I watched wrestling off and on.
What?
I watched wrestling off and on as a kid, and then I got into high school, and everyone watching wrestling when I was in high school, and Stone Cold, like I had to watch Stone Cold every time. Again, similar to when I was really watching, and just when Stone Cold started, Stone Cold was this heel feuding with Bret Hart and everyone else. I was like, no, I don't see you as the bad guy. You represent everything that I think is right in the world because I was a teenager and hated authority. So all those matches that I had remembered seeing, the promos were always so good. He threw The Rock off a bridge. He killed a man on TV.
Yep.
Fighting Vince McMahon, hitting with a bedpan in the middle of a hospital room.
His fight with Booker T in the grocery store is like one of the most iconic fights in wrestling history.
What's so great is when you have a character that is so specific and real in a way, you can put Stone Cold in any absurd situation and it works. You go, oh yeah, I totally believe that's exactly what would happen. In Stone Cold, Steve Austin has just aged gracefully. He's such a statesman of the sport and the history and of that time and the interviews and podcasts and all the work that he's doing. I'm glad he's getting paid now. I'm glad that he doesn't have to go back in the ring with 3 bad knees and still fight.
He found one he brought with him that's also bad.
It's just,
The crazy thing is he still puts up good matches. Like one of my top matches of last year was his match against KO at Mania.
Sure. Like still
awesome.
And is willing to put his body on the line, willing to feud with anybody, everybody.
So and for the listener at home, also, the professor is cosplaying as him right now. It's
this is why I had to shave my head because this is actually. I'm funny you bring that up. When I was making the decision to finally shave my head, it was like I have to do it. There was that tiny bit of me that was like, "Are you sure? Don't you want to look like a balding clown for the rest of your life?" And I looked at pictures of bald men, and the first 3 were Stone Cold, Patrick Stewart, and I can't even remember the third, but it was like, oh, I have to. I'll look like Stone Cold. Yul Brynner. I think it was Idris Elba. I think was the third one. Someone in there was, if I'm like y'all, fine, I'm shaving my head. But Stone Cold's my 3, and it's really hard because if he's my 3, then how do you get higher? That's where I'm at.
Number 3 was hard for me. There's 2 that I don't know where to put them with 3. So I'm putting both at 3 because I don't care. It's my list. One of them is Edge. So tie for 3 is one's Edge because he's the one that first taught me how to hate a heel. Because I fucking despised Edge when I first watched him. I would love this man. And the second one is RVD.
One of a kind.
Watching him was also awesome, and that's where I started really liking high flying wrestling. I was watching RVD. So because I both started watching around the same time. Edge is really it. Edge, we all know, talked about him, one of the most amazing people on the planet, and RVD. Unfortunately, was getting pushed and didn't get pushed, which still sucks. But his one night stand against John Cena, one of the biggest pops of all time when he won that match, holding the ECW and the WWE Championship at the same time. Mm-hmm. Incredible. If you don't have a chance, watch that match. ECW one night stand, awesome.
And yell at JBL the whole time because he's an asshole.
It's JBL, yep.
Yeah.
Number 2.
So technically, this is part of WWE because for my number 2 pick, I'm going to be heading down to the NXT brand. And here's the thing. So Black and Gold, Nickelodeon Slime Color 2.0. Now we're in the stages of 2.75 at this point. But there have been a lot of great wrestlers that come out of NXT, both in Black and Gold in this current iteration. But looking at everything, I think the one that has been consistently great since joining NXT and being signed to WWE NXT, my number 2 is going to your current NXT North American champion, Wesley. For me, I'm familiar with Wes's work outside of WWE before he got signed with WWE because he is currently still part of the Rascals, which is him, his tag team partner, and Trey Miguel. But for me, Wes, I'm a big spot and high-flying wrestler. His finisher is still his finisher that he's currently using is crazy, where he does a flip and then kicks somebody in the chin like midway through. Is just beautiful work. But the reason I pick Wesley is because, again, I'm a big sucker and I want to support wrestlers, especially when behind the scenes stuff kind of screws them over a little bit. So, because he was a tag team wrestler and he was tag team champ in NXT, but then his partner got let go because of some things that went on, whether it was the picture of his tag team partner of a Halloween one year or the allegations that were coming out from his ex-wife that were happening. And he was floundering on NXT. He was being jobbed out to a lot of people. But then he started building wins. And then from Halloween Havoc last year all the way on, Wes, I think, has had one of the best title reigns in modern WWE history for me. And that's a bold statement to say. I think he's had every single title defense has been amazing. And he's putting on lots of great matches. Again, that fatal 5-way at Stand and Deliver was just, it was so beautiful. And to see that live made me even a bigger fan. But running down the list of people he's defended it against: Ilya Dragunov, Dragon Lee, JD McDonough, Nathan Frazier.
The Dragon, El Dragon.
Nathan Frazier, Carmelo Hayes, just running Cameron Grimes. Like, he has had such an incredible turnaround from going to a tag team wrestler and, because of circumstances out of his control, floundering and being jobbed out in NXT, to be given the chance to slowly build up wins. And he has consistently held that NXT title down. And at the time of this recording, I'm really excited for that one-on-one match between him and Tyler Bate. I love me some flippy boys. And that match is going to be good. And then eventually Wes versus Mustafa Ali is also going to be great. But Wesley is my number 2. I know I'm cheating because I'm going to NXT, but Wesley is one of my current favorites right now.
You can cheat there. My number 2 is a cheat now because it's no longer WWF or WWE, but they're still involved in wrestling right now. My number 2 is Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan,
sure. Yeah.
His WWE run, from the crap he was given at the beginning all the way through, his personality, even when he was retired and doing Talking Smack, everything else, that is a consummate person that I would tune in to watch every week to see what happened. The bad creative, the good creative, whatever ended up happening with him, he made gold out of everything of it, and he was technically able to back it up because he was such a damn good wrestler. And now is Bryan Danielson in AEW. Must-see TV for me.
That's cool.
That's cool.
It's good. No, you're exactly right. It's hard. These are fucking hard.
This is such a fucking hard list.
And I didn't know about Daniel Bryan Danielson until way late in his WWE career. Seeing some matches, oh, this dude's great. And then he disappeared. And then turned up a few years later. And I was like, oh, you're here. Oh, you're back. Oh, you're this. So I wish I had seen more of him.
I'm so excited the match between him and Okada at Forbidden Door in 2 weeks. It's good.
I'm really glad that he's still out there and I get a chance to see this.
Stay tuned for the watch along special coming very soon.
Oh yeah, we gotta do that. My number 2 is, I don't want to say obvious, but yeah, of course, Mick Foley. I go Mick Foley. I go Mankind. I go Cactus Jack and Dude Love and all these other intricate whatever things. The fact that Mick had a pay-per-view where Mick was all 3 characters at different times for different reasons.
In the Rumble. He came in the Rumble.
In the Rumble. Came in as all in the Rumble. That's right. It was just fantastic. Man, the feud that really got me into wrestling as a teenager and young adult was the Mankind Undertaker feud that went about 3 or 4 years and was just horrifying. And it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain to you young people, but this idea that at anywhere, at any time, there was a psycho wearing a mask was going to stick his fingers down your throat until you passed out. And that Mankind could be anywhere. And it would just happen.
Can I say one of the creepiest ways to end a match too? Because when they go into his outro theme and they put the window up, and he'd be sitting there and he'd be calm, eerily calm after what he did. Oh my god.
There was a sock puppet angle for a while where there was a sock puppet he would talk to and then fall asleep one and all these weird little things. It would always Socko. It was. If you were watching Raw at that time, it was the Mankind matches were at the end of the night when it was dark and it was creepy and they could cut away so you never saw the exit, or the exit was a little different and weird. Then if you've read Mick Foley's book, which I read a chunk of it because a friend of mine had it, I haven't read the whole thing, but The Legend of Mick and everything Mick has done. And the now stuff that's cliche, JR going, oh God, he's broken in half. He's broken in half. he killed him. And then The Undertaker going, yeah, I was looking at a dead man. Wow, I just killed someone live on TV. Okay. But mix a legend in 100 different countries. Like anywhere Mick goes, it's, oh, you're the one that lit Terry Funk on fire. Oh, that's right. You're the one that survived all this stuff. Mick Foley.
I'm excited. He's coming to Burlington to do a stand-up show at the Comedy Club up here, and that's how excited I am that
Mick Foley is?
Oh, fuck yeah. On the anniversary of the King of the Ring show, which is, it's the 25th anniversary, he's doing a show up here at the Comedy Club.
That's awesome.
Tell me you're going.
Guy? Is he in Vermont?
No, he's just in Vermont. I don't know why he's in Vermont.
Tell me you're going.
Because it's Mick Foley. Like,
at this time, we're going to set up a GoFundMe so we can have JVL cover that as an IRL special report.
I would have paid $100. I can get a meet and greet with him and get him to take a picture with me and talk to him for a little bit.
This is a tangent, and you'll understand this. As a character, Mankind was the most disgusting, disturbing, ugly, what the hell is that thing? Cactus Jack, you were just like, that's just some dude who lives in a van. Dude Love was like, you think you're hot, but you're not. But if you see the real Mick Foley, you're like, you're a handsome dad bod guy. Look at you. Who are you?
He has also raised the sweetest kids too, because his daughter is so sweet and lovely. And he's just a down-to-earth dude, and he genuinely cares about the business. Yeah. He doesn't let allegiances sway him. He's going to say things like, this is great, this is not, and he always gives kudos to everybody.
He was just on the new Dark Side of the Ring about Chris Candido, and hearing him talk about Tammy and Chris was breaking.
I got to watch this. So that's my pick right there.
Number 2.
Damn, how am I going to... That was heartfelt. I'm not sure I'm going to fill this one up. My number 2, it was debatable. My number 2 is Dave Bautista.
See, I wanted to put him on my go.
I love, because the biggest reasons as a kid, the move, his spine buster popped me as a kid. Watching him throw that move out, and then just watching the way he wrestled and everything that he did when he was a heel, when he was a face with Evolution, when he turned on, which we'll hear number 1, everything that he did. I really loved what he did everything that he did. And then when he came back, his little wave that he did when he left the company for the final time, even his last match against Triple H when he officially retired.
Give me what I want. Give me what I want.
He was really good no matter what he did, and now he had great acting chops as we're seeing now what he's doing in the Hollywood world. In my opinion, the best wrestling transition to actor I've seen. Just all around awesome. He's a great human being as well.
Dave Bautista is considered the best wrestler turned actor. Period.
Yeah. Incredible.
And it's when you look at the film work he's doing, it's oh shit. Like The Rock is shticky and does great comedies, and John Cena's out there, and He Who Shall Not Be Named was doing shit in the 80s, and look at all these sticky things.
Roddy Piper.
Like here's this movie. Roddy Piper's movies were fine too. Yeah.
I mean, watching
them not so much. They live.
Dave Bautista's doing dramatic leads.
Watching him do the movie, I don't remember what it was called. The movie where it's like one of you guys have to kill each other because an apocalypse is happening.
Yeah.
Oh,
the Knock at the Cabin. Yeah.
That movie was so good. Like he can play those dramatic roles, but he also can play the big, meaty, strong guy that The Rock does.
He did both in Blade Runner 2049.
Yes.
I was told not to see this. Should I see this?
You should watch it. For nothing else, for the opening scene with Dave Bautista in it.
Yes.
A replicant, and like the heartbreaking scene, which turns into the most violent scene in the world. It's really good.
Because I was told by nerds not to, and that's
fuck nerds. Me. I'm a nerd. Watch it.
We're the only nerds who matter.
Fair. The council has spoken.
When I was going through my phase of I want to be a professional wrestler, I wanted my moveset to be based around what Dave was doing. Spine busters, like spears. It's some of my favorite moves. I don't want to use a spear anymore, unfortunately, because fucking everybody uses that move now.
But you do the mini bomb?
Oh, the mini bomb. The Batista bomb, of course, the sit-out power bomb. I wish he stayed standing when he did it, but the sit-out was cool. Just all around, I love what he did. Incredible wrestler. Even better human being.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Batista.
Glass Onion was hysterical.
Oh my gosh. That movie overall was so good, but Dave Bautista fucking killed me.
If you gave a 6 or 7, I would definitely have Dave Bautista on there.
He'd be on there, yeah.
Dave was right there.
Again, there's no right or wrong answer for these lists because it's so subjective, and there's honestly, from past and present, there's so much talent you can pick from, honestly. Sure. And even what's great is, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but because of how many promotions we have now, you see all these older people from like the 90s and the early 2000s are finding success across other brands and things like that. Like Mr. Billy Gunn, Daddy Ass is so over in AEW.
And Austin Creed talks about this, and I love Austin Creed's take on this, and it's evolved to where McMahon had such a tight grip for 50 years. Now it is, hey, you got to let us reinvent ourselves, because when I turn 50, I can't walk.
Yeah.
You got to give me a chance to be something else and learn something else while I'm here doing
Learn
it.
a trade.
Yeah, acting is an easy quote-unquote transition because, oh, look, we'll put you on the camera.
There are some guys that have gone into stunt coordination, a bunch of other stuff because they can like choreograph.
There's also people I'm just like I always will bring him up to, but the way that, and this is also a tangent too, because you could see the mark that a lot of these professional wrestlers have had on some celebrities. Like we talked about this earlier a little bit, but Stephen Amell is a huge fan of professional wrestling. And at first, when they bring in celebrities in WWE, it's just, yeah, it is whatever. I still, if of the minority that Snooki did not do that bad during her WrestleMania match. Bad Bunny is on for me, Bad Bunny is like my all-time favorite, but it also might be because I'm half Puerto Rican, so I gotta support the Puerto Ricans.
Johnny Knoxville shows up.
That was great between him and Sami Zayn, but
all these
double G.
Snoop Dogg's a real one.
Celebrities show up and are actually all in on it.
Stephen Amell is the one that I always go to. Him and Bad Bunny are like the two. If you want to see good celebrity involvement, like they give a shit, those two. Like as silly as the match was between Stephen Amell and Stardust, like that was a silly match, but man, did they do well. And now he's producing like his own wrestling drama series, and CM Punk of all people was involved in this show, and just getting independent wrestlers to be part of the actors as well as Stephen Amell is doing the Lord's work. But that's a side tangent.
Number one.
Go ahead.
Can I be the old man and go, back in my day, my favorite celebrity person you had back there was Leslie Nielsen. In your
Yes.
house, doing the Naked Gun thing and like looking for the Undertaker, which is the funniest fucking thing ever.
Wasn't Mr. T did a celebrity ref a bunch of times in the 80s? That was the big, come on out here and ref this thing.
He was in the main event of WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, like right in the middle of that.
One of my other personal favorites too Tyson was the fun one. R.I.P. to Betty White, but Betty White always had me cracking up when she was guest starring. Like
Shaq.
Oh my gosh. Him and Jay Cargill had a tag team match against Cody and Brandy, which was something I never thought I would see in my lifetime.
This is a whole different list of best celebrity whatevers. But like Dennis Rodman had some actually solid.
So what a fucking weirdo, but yeah.
Weird, but like matches I remember watching. This is amazing. What the hell?
I think we found we could talk. Yeah. I was like, I'm writing this down. I'm writing this down for a future topic.
Whole episode about all this stuff. Okay, number one.
Mikey, number one. WE.
Yes, I'm aware of that, JVL, right here. I mean, if it's not obvious by my shirt, my number one is going to be Eddie Guerrero. And here's why, okay? Listen.
Why? Here's why. Quick, John, back your head.
Speaking of which, John, Professor, I got to send you this picture that I saw earlier because Simon Miller was wrestling earlier today and he's dressed up. Are you familiar with One Punch Man?
Yes,
hello.
That's my logo here on Discord.
Okay, I forgot about that for a hot second. But anyways, I'm gonna send you this picture because Simon Miller. No, put the video back on. Put the video back on. God damn it! The editing is gonna be so hard for the video. Anyways,
sorry,
Joff, I love you. Anyways, so I'm gonna send you this picture. But Simon Miller was wrestling today, and he's literally dressed up as Saitama. It is the best thing on the planet.
So good.
I'm gonna put it in the chat, but my number one, Eddie Guerrero. For me, this is the personal bias. Outside of Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero was one of the other few Latin wrestlers that made big headways in Vincent Kennedy McMahon's WE. Because let's be honest here, like all the current roster of Latin talent usually either get thrown as the saucy Latin lover, which is a trope that most of us hate, Or in some cases, they are also the foreign exchange student archetype where they don't speak a lick of English and then they get made fun of because they only speak Spanish or have an accent, which I'm not down with. But Eddie Guerrero, for me, is one of those wrestlers that I looked up to as a kid, even going back his history. He was one of the few that always got mentioned in my household, only because his body of work it was great. And again, another redemption story because he got let go. He got his shit together, came back, was on the rise, found so much success. And it was just unfortunate that he passed away the way he did, because it was just like, I think that's what the heartbreaking thing is for me too. It was like nothing super crazy. It just happened that he had a minor.
He fought super crazy.
But it's just sad. And also, as weird as that, he was part of one of the most iconic rivalries for me, just as from story. And I'm like, this story makes no fucking sense, but I'm here for it. The custody of Dominic was such a weird storyline. But for me, it worked because Ray and him were so close in real life. They're like, this is stupid, but you know what? It makes it easier because like they are actually family. Dominic knows both of them. And Eddie is always given props and always getting tributes because everyone in their... That's another move, by the way, that I'm tired of seeing is unless you are the LWO, I'm fucking tired of all the three amigos, especially from all of the white wrestlers. Like, sit down. You don't... No, I don't want you doing that.
Logan Paul.
See, I didn't have to see it all the time from him, but I also gave him flack for it. I was like, stop it. You're white. You can't...
It makes sense why he did it, though, because he did it in his feud with Ray.
Yeah, so
you can stop doing it now.
I was like, you can stop. But Eddie Guerrero, LWO, and I cried when his theme song played for Ray's entrance at WrestleMania. Minnie was there. He saw me. We cried. We shed a lot of tears. But Eddie Guerrero holds a special place in my heart. He is my number one for WWE.
If I had a 5 A, B, and C, it was like 5. It was a 3-way tie to put Eddie in there. I just didn't see enough of Eddie by the time I was watching that second reiteration of him coming back, but I loved his work. It was always so much fun to watch.
I have learned to appreciate him more, unfortunately, after he passed. I was not as tied into him earlier. But yeah. My number one, kind of cliche, but it's not. And not only is it because of what this person gave to the wrestling industry, what they brought up with it, who they're attached to and everything else, but also personally having seen them live when I was a child, being in the room with them and my brother interacting with them directly in the crowd. Bret Hart is my number one. The excellence of execution, could have a good match with a broom, could put everybody over and knew how to carry anybody to something else. Interacted with the fans spectacularly. For as gruff as he was in person, he was definitely loving for a lot of things. Carried his family through a lot of tragedy, was screwed over, all that stuff. And the personal aspect, my brother got given the damn sunglasses. He got them at a house show.
Way.
At a fucking house show. I will forever be tied to Bret Hart because because he was there.
Are they framed? Like they're still out there?
My brother broke them on the playground. We lost them in the divorce. We don't know where they are.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
That was the same night that when Undertaker used to throw his hat out into the crowd every once in a while, it whizzed over our head and we almost touched it. But it was a house show in Hartford, Connecticut. We lost out on it. But Bret Hart has been part of my wrestling world forever and will always be my number one.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. And heartbreaking in a beautiful way. My number one, when I started watching wrestling, waking up hella early on Saturday mornings, because wrestling used to be on before cartoons. Cartoons would start at 6 or 6:30. Then there would be like wrestling reruns. And I remember like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Ric Flair matches and early original face paint Sting and all kinds of stuff and just random shows that would play out here in California. It was probably WWF reruns at the time, but there was also like Ohio Pro and territorial stuff that would play in the mornings. And Superstars, when that really kicked up, and then when Raw really kicked up and I started watching again, the first wrestler I remember watching and going, that guy, that's the one, that guy's like me. Of course, I was 8. Was The Undertaker. I was all in, because I've been a creepy shit kid since I was little. wearing a Ghostbuster shirt now.
You're friends with Shotzi. You worked with Shotzi Blackheart of all people, which I'm still jealous, by the way.
On a horror movie where I killed a lot of teenagers with an axe.
Shout out, Shotzi. We want you on this podcast.
Please throw me a bone. They don't believe me.
Oh no, I fully believe you. I just find it funny that, like, of all of us, there's some people that have had experience on horror movies. You killed people. I got murdered.
Fair enough. Horror movies are fun. If you ever get a chance.
So I punched myself in the leg in a horror movie.
There you go.
So I got I got jump scared that bad.
Nice.
So I remember watching The Undertaker as a kid and just going, this is amazing. I want to be like that. I want to watch that. I like that. And of course, they were shoving Shawn Michaels out there, and they were pushing everybody. They were pushing Bret Hart. They're pushing everyone. It was always The Undertaker. When I was little, and I know it's He Who Shall Not Be Named, but I had a pre-ripped yellow Hulkster shirt from my dad's coworker. Gave it to me because they knew I watched wrestling. I'd wear it every now and then. I remember taking it off when The Undertaker would come on the screen and then putting it back on when The Undertaker left. I just thought The Undertaker was the coolest thing in the world. All the gothic horror dead man stuff. If we get to gimmicks in my time frame before I gotta go, you know where my gimmick's gonna go. So nimble. Even I'm gonna gush too much and we got shit to places to go. Even the American Badass thing worked for me the first, 6 months of it. I was like, okay, you're a UFC dude on a bike and you beat people up and okay, I buy it. Once it got a little too faux patriot, I was like, okay, bring back the Dead Man, which once the Dead Man came back, it was over. So I'm still on, I really want to see the speaking tour. It's just not in the States. Here it's amazing, but was always such a pro and so kind, and that guy. Yeah, The Undertaker always did it for me.
Mark Holloway is the GOAT. Yes, so one of mine, of course, is, I've already mentioned it before, and it's for the reason it's a little bit behind me. I was in DCS custody or CPS custody for a good chunk of my childhood, and he's one of the reasons why I couldn't really watch wrestling too much. It's just the thought of what he would do really helped me a lot. My number one is Rey Mysterio. Okay. Grew up watching him win the world title, everything else. He gave me a lot of the strength that you would need as a young kid to get through a lot of the adversities that I went through. Thinking about what would Rey do? Rey can get through this. I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid, even though I was told I wasn't allowed to watch it. I was like, I'm watching it anyways because I like Rey Mysterio. And I like the 619. And I like what he does. And he's awesome. And in fact, he still wrestles today. And I cried like a little baby when he came out at Mania. Just above and beyond, he is my number one and will always be my number one. And I'm happy he's in the Hall of Fame and he's getting all the things that he recognized and he deserves. Rey he is him for me.
I think all of our number ones are the ones that if we heard the music, we cry. Like it just happens.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I cried when I heard Eddie's music, and then I also cried again with Minnie here when Rey's music hit at WrestleMania. Uriel had to look at both of us as bro. I was like, leave me alone.
What was I can't remember. You guys remember more than me. And I saw a replay of this. I did not see it live. Paul Bearer walking out without any music.
Oh my gosh.
And everyone just going, and just smiling and then just slowly turning until the gong hit and it's, I can't.
I still remember the one where he opened the giant urn with the light in it and starts spinning it around and the thunder starts to crash and oh man.
Oh my goodness. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
Paul Bearers. God, I loved him.
This is a tangent and we'll get there, and I have maybe an hour before I got to do dad stuff. But those characters like that are dying. They're not out there anymore. And that's such a cool part of wrestling in general.
But they're hard to sell and they're hard to book now.
They're hard to. No one's. Again, not to always sound like I'm getting on my acting high horse, but you just got to get a character actor that can nail a character like that down, and it's gonna work.
They had one for a while. WWE had Bray Wyatt who could do that and wrestle, and they couldn't book the shit out of him.
And we'll talk about this more, but there's other ones that I feel are right there if they just did it a little different.
Alrighty. So we just spent like a good hour on just this list alone.
On just this.
And we had 7 things we had to write down for Mikey. Top 5, 7 different topics.
We got through one, and it's a third of the podcast already.
We got through half of one.
Okay.
Do you want to just pick one more to go through, and then we're gonna have to part 2 this thing?
We could. We can also speed run if we like.
Why would we do that?
That's true.
This is the Get to Know Us podcast. Why would we speedrun? People
all right.
Get to know us and why we like our things.
Okay.
You hate what we are about to say.
Fuck you.
Damn. All right. Hey, you know what? We can make this.
Vermont, fight me.
We can make this into a multi-part. I don't mind. Honestly, this would be great.
Good. This would be good. Be like have in our back pockets when we don't do other things.
We can also anyways. All right. So do we want to go to non-WWE male or do we want to jump into females WWE?
I feel like we could round out WWE females, and then we might want to save a part 2 for all not WWE, and just be like, here's all the other stuff you should care about.
Okay, so then let's do this. Let's go through top 5 female WWE, and then we'll jump around to some of our favorite matches across the years.
Sure.
And then next time we can save a part 2 for top male, top female, non-WWE related, and then get into characters and characterizations and just moments and things like that. All right.
Let's see how far we get.
If anything, we can also use the watch along in 2 weeks.
The Undertaker.
All right, here we go. So number 5 for WWE. Number 5 for me, and this is WE, so I learned my lesson because JVL won't let me forget it. Anyways,
I have stopped talking about this, Mikey. I don't know why you keep bringing this up.
Because
can you stop bringing it up and actually just do the list? It'd be nice if you did the list for once. Just let the list go.
This is a hate crime.
You flipping me off is a hate crime.
Anyways, all right, number 5. I'm probably gonna get some hate for this because most people put her as the number 1 at the top of the list, but my number 5 is Trish Stratus.
Interesting.
Here's the thing. Because we're also looking at current women too, how do I put this nicely? The current women, minus Vincent Kennedy McMahon getting his sticky fingers on some of the women's booking, I feel like a lot of the modern women have been better booked. At least Triple H has booked the women in Black and Gold NXT better than the history of the company. But I have to put Trish Stratus on this list because she is literally one of the few women in the 2000s that literally put women's wrestling on the map for WE, and she took it seriously, and that she wanted to do everything she could to get the women taken seriously in a time where it was bra and panty matches pretty much every other week. Trish's body of work Trish has had some of my favorite rivalries. Obviously, the one that gets brought up a lot is her and Lita's feud as one of the best women's feud of that time. I really enjoyed it, but I actually think the feud that kind of solidified me as a Trish Stratus fan was her feud with Mickie James. Because I think both of those women, and Lita too, you're going to see those 2 women somewhere in this list because let's be real here. But those 3 in particular were the pillars that made WWE fans be like, oh, women's wrestling can actually be really good. It's not about scantily clothed women or half naked things and things like that. And I have to give it to Trish as well because she was given some shit as well in terms of what she had to do. I think she was involved in that mud wrestling match where she in interviews has stated that it's the worst match she has hated in her career because it was so demoralizing. It was so degrading, but she did what she had to do because it led to her actually being able to get more opportunities for her and the women to be on TV. And the fact that she was part of the first ever women's main event on a TV show, which was bonkers at the time. But Trish Stratus is my number 5. I hope that she gets a better story now that she's back, because right now it's not working with me between her and Becky at the moment. But that's because it's just meandering a little bit because we're just building towards Money in the Bank. But I'm hoping that after that one's over, we can get a solid build. What is eventually, I think, going to be her versus Becky at SummerSlam. But Trish Stratus, my number 5.
Oh, it's me. Sorry. Now, my number 5 is for nothing other than just personal preference because I love watching her work, and it's a current wrestler right now. And she's not been given any rope to go with between the injury she's had happen and then no push at all. But I love Tegan Nox. I always have. She is amazing. I want her to succeed so fucking hard and to be shown from the dark matches I've seen her in, from the stuff in NXT when she was healthy. She is an amazing worker and can really pull this off. Give her a shot.
I love Tegan Nox. Team Kick forever.
This is going to be totally different. This is a pick that I don't think anyone would put out there. For me, women's wrestling, when I was watching and the gesture, I'm going to say Mae Young. I'm going to go all the way back. I'm going to say Mae Young. I did a little bit of the research on her. I knew a little bit of her history. Started wrestling in like the 40s and 50s when it was pure kayfabe and carnival. And if you go back and look, even in the black and white photos, Mae was a looker back then. But there was nothing. We hadn't gotten to bra and panties 1990s. Really, it was still seen as a tough woman, go beat up tough woman stuff. Had a career, had a great career, was away for it for 20 years, lived a life, and then came back in the late 90s and had these interests with her, the fabulous Moolah, who should be on this list, but I had the edge. And just kind of what Mikey was speaking to a little bit was that women are more than just a gimmick or a shtick or they are characters and performers. They're doing the physical acts. They're doing everything that we expect the men to do, and in a lot of cases doing it better. And if you have not seen Bubba Ray Dudley put 77-year-old Mae Young through a table just because he can, and the story behind it where he's literally telling Vince, no, I think that's a bad idea, and Mae pushes him and goes, you're going to do it anyway. And he's, okay, I'm sorry I killed you on TV. His reaction is real. Is him actually going, I just did that to a 77-year-old woman. And part of it, too, is she's alive. She took the bump. Oh, my God.
And then she got up and asked him to do it off the stage.
Exactly.
It was so funny because Bubba, a.k.a. Bully Ray, he said this in an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and he's just, you know what? I didn't want to do it, but she's the one that coaxed us into doing it. She's like, it'll be fine. Mae Young was out here wilding.
And I think that's the same interview where he's literally like, America. That's when I realized that we're doomed. They cheered for me when I did that to this nice old woman.
But also, he credited her for making his career.
Yeah. And I think she was wrestling up until when she passed away. I think she passed away.
Pretty much. Yep.
Like she was doing matches, and then like a few weeks after when she passed away, and she was booked. She was on the calendar for other stuff.
And the fact that she has it doesn't happen anymore, but the 2 times it happened, she had a whole women's wrestling tournament named after her, the Mae Young Classic.
So I think that as far as it's interesting that, how do I say this? It seems like when someone passes away, they're a legacy and a legend for a little while, and then we forget their impact. I think we've done that with the Mae Young, this Moolah, where you realize, oh wow, he really carried the torch. And women's wrestling was buried. 50s, 60s, 70s. It was just house shows and other things. You didn't see it on the TVs. And then it came back in the 90s, and then Mae Young showed up and went, by the way, we've been doing this. Put me through the fucking table.
Interject on that. Part of the reason why it was buried was because of fabulous Moolah.
Is that true?
In general. Yeah, she should be buried and never remembered for a lot of different reasons. But because of her stranglehold on, I'm the only person that trains these women. I'm the only one that gets paid by them. I basically send them out as sex slaves to my male counterparts to sell them out on that stuff. Moolah held on to women's wrestling and basically said, if I can't do it and you don't book me, this isn't going to happen. And
so I've heard bits and pieces of this legend. I just don't know enough about it, but I've heard that.
Moolah ruined women's wrestling and even ruined it in the 80s and stuff like that. Wendy Richter was one of her acolytes that got the title because of Moolah. Moolah took it off her to be in the spotlight in the 80s. And while you bring her up, and I understand she's part of the history, like I feel like she shouldn't be titled Mae Young, even though they were. And that's my own personal thing on this. Like Moolah is like the yellow and red person we don't name. We just don't talk about.
Right. See, and maybe I just don't know enough about her in that history. I just knew Mae Young's really well because for some reason I knew.
And Mae Young is amazing. Yeah, Mae Young's
amazing person. But I'd heard that Moolah was taken. This is another podcast. Sorry.
We can have our own version of Dark Side of the Ring going into that. So, Minnie, who you got your number 5 for WWE women?
My number 5 is the ninth wonder of the world, China.
Nice.
I haven't done a lot of watching the women's wrestling because I just started doing it recently when I started really getting back into wrestling. When I was watching when I was younger, I was like, I want to watch a dude get thrown through a table. Really don't care about the bra and panty matches because I was a young kid. And back, it was the early 2000s that they're still weren't the best. But China, what she did with DX, her winning the IC belt, all the crazy shit that she did, China, and then it was more the legacy, the impact she left on wrestlers that are around now. Like one of the things that broke my heart, I think, was a Scott Hall. They asked, oh, it was X-Pac. They asked a question. He goes, "What was your biggest wish right now?" And he goes, "I wish China was still around." I'm like, that kind of tells the kind of the impact that she had on the wrestlers that she was around, what she did. So that's why I think she's deserving of the number 5 spot for me.
Sure.
Number 4.
So this one's also like for me, my number 4, just because for me, up until this point, so we're entering the Divas era of WWE, right? So maybe a little less bra and panty matches, but a lot of the women's wrestlers during the Divas era were mostly just hot girls and models and twins in certain cases. But then as the Divas era kept going, we got introduced to some women that actually were good on the mic and were good wrestlers. Poor Natalya, she had to struggle through the Divas era too, as like the only one that actually was a good wrestler, and I still don't think she gets the proper credit she deserves, but that's neither here nor there. My number 4 is actually going to go to, I'm going to cheat because I'm going to put 2 here because it was hard to pick because both of them, I think, jump-started women's wrestling in WWE once again being taken as this thing where we know the women's wrestlers, so the women's wrestling is actually better than the men's wrestling in a lot of cases because these women can go. But a tie for number 4, I'm going to give it to AJ Lee and Paige. Like during the Divas era, those 2 women did both hold the Divas title before it got retired. And I think these 2, there was something there that kind of started the spark. It was like, oh shit, women's wrestling can be taken seriously and that women can actually be good in the ring. And it's not just, oh, look at how hot we are. Paige, Saraya, whatever you want to call her now, like before getting injured, homegirl was 19 when she came up from NXT and she won the title on her main roster debut. That's just how much amazing she was. And then AJ dropping her own mini pipe bomb when she said, it's like, most of you women are here to look pretty or for the ratings, or you do whatever you need. You're not here to wrestle. And watching that promo, just watching all the women do their thing, but you could see that Natalya was like, damn, this girl is speaking some truth. So those 2 for me started what would later become NXT. And I think that Paige and AJ, they both, I don't want to say paved the way because that's not true, but they were my introduction to be like, oh, wait, women's wrestling can actually be really good. Because then later on, we would get in NXT, we would get Charlotte, Becky, Sasha, Bayley, which would then lead to what we have in Bianca, Raquel, Liv Morgan. Like those 2 I put like what showed me as a person be like, women's wrestling can be taken seriously, and that when given enough time, they could put on some solid matches and eventually actually be a lot better than a lot of the men's matches that were going on at that time outside of like your heavy hitters. And honestly, those 2 have helped me do more research on my women's wrestlers. And that's why I'm such a proponent of those 2, because they made me fall in love with women's wrestling again. And it's now evolved into, there's so much female talent out there. It's just, yeah. But my number 4 is a tie between Paige and AJ.
I'm not going to take more time. My number 4 is the exact same as yours, Mikey.
Hey, nice.
Literally was the exact same for the same reasons. Going on to the professor.
Yay.
It falls to me. I'm torn on using this one for a few reasons, and you'll understand when I mention it. And in fact, I'm going to call an audible on my own thing. I'm going to flip a few things around. I'm gonna make it endless because I like Shotzi. I'm going to put Shotzi in my top 5.
Yes, yes. I stand Shotzi in this household.
Shotzi's great.
She is on every one of my GM mode picks for when I do GM mode in WWE 2K. She's always on my roster, and she's always the title holder going into the season.
And she's so genuine. She's having a blast. Her promos are always great. Like she's running circles around all these. She runs circles around the content, is basically what I'm trying to say. You can give her anything, and she's going to sell it, and she's going to have a blast, and she's going to call anybody out.
Yeah,
The-
flying
her-
nothing into a carefooted clutch. It works really well.
And it was great. Her and Natalia's as a tag team, I did not hate. I thought it was okay, fine, whatever. But I feel like Shotzi can work with anybody, do a great job. Some of the indie, if you've ever seen her indie stuff from right when she started, when she was doing house shows in the middle of nowhere, Oakland, and the random warehouses, Shotzi was doing crazy shit, and still does. Her jumping off and doing suicide dives and getting caught by 4 people. She was hanging from the rafters and jumping from lights and doing psycho things back in her day. So I'm really excited to see where she's going. I fear that she's getting pushed into the coolest mid-card ever, which makes me sad because I hope that potential gets better. I think they've given her a ceiling, which makes me sad.
Because she doesn't have a finisher. She needs a finisher.
She just needs a finisher. And then maybe they'll push that. Shoot him with the tank. Fuck it. I don't know. Do anything.
She has everything else. She has a cool fucking entrance, like, depending on the city. The crowd is behind her. She is amazing on the mic when given the time and not forced to regurgitate a piece of paper that was changed in 15 minutes. Like, when you let her be her, like when she hosted the 2 years of Halloween Havoc, when you just let her be her, it's amazing.
She's great.
I love Shotzi.
She's a total professional working on a shitty indie horror movie that I was in. She was a blast, and those are stories I can't quite tell. Not that she's ever going to hear this, but if you want to hear some of those stories, I can tell them to you.
I do. I wholeheartedly do.
They're hilarious. In our IMDb, our movie, which is rated 2 out of 10 stars on IMDb.
Oh, you got 2.
You got 2 whole stars. Shotzi's great. Moving on.
Oh man, my number 4 is Natalia.
Hey, really?
I like Natalia a lot. I think she was one of the legitimately good wrestlers during the Divas era. She struggled through it, slogged through it, and here she is now, still one of the longer tenured veteran female wrestlers on the roster now. Incredible wrestling, of course. She's a heart, so of course she had some of the best wrestling features you can have on the entire planet. And then her personality, she's funny. She's a great person. She's just like individually an awesome individual. And she's just all around a good person, great wrestler, does well in the mic, does well in the ring, no matter what kind of spot you put her in. Unfortunately, she got squashed at a Night of Champions, but she's awesome. So I like Natalia. She's my number 4.
Fun fact, Natalia is the only woman who has been to every single Saudi Arabia show. She was the part of the first one when the women were given there, and she's been there almost for every Saudi show as part of wrestling. I just want her to get more credit. I like JVL's idea. Make her the leader of a faction called the Heart Dungeon. Yep. Okay, number 3. So this might come as a surprise, but my number 3 is going to be Alexa Bliss.
Ooh.
So here's the thing. In this modern iteration of the female wrestlers, like, everyone immediately always names the 4 horsewomen of NXT. Charlotte, Mercedes, aka Sasha Banks, formerly known as Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky, and those 4 women definitely were a foundation for NXT. But I feel like a lot of people don't talk about how important Alexa was a part of that class of women too, because I really fell in love with Alexis when she came to main roster, and when she ditched her cheerleader gimmick for I'm going to be this mean girl and I'm just going to dominate. And just for me, Alexa is like one of the first examples of how NXT as a developmental can actually work really well. Because this girl had no experience when she got signed, and just to see how the leaps and bounds she has grown between her time in NXT to main roster. She still has some of my favorite matches. Like, I really enjoyed her tables match between her and Becky, where she beat Becky by putting her through a table and winning the championship. She's creative has let her down a little bit. Like, she still was a part of that god-awful This Is Your Life segment with Bayley. That did nothing for either one of those women. That was awful. But I feel like Alexa doesn't get a lot of credit because she is so good on the ring. She is good on the mic. She is part of one of my favorite mixed match teams of all times, Team Little Big all the way. And she really, really well with everyone. And the fact that because she's so small and she's also double jointed, she can sell the hell out of a lot of moves too. Like I remember, I believe it was her versus Sasha, like where Sasha grabbed her arm and twisted it. And because she's double jointed, it made it look like Sasha pulled her arm out of her socket. Alexa, I think she's been missing a little bit because she is pregnant with her first child. So I want to wish her congratulations. I love her. But my number 3 is Alexa because I think she is very talented. And sometimes when we talk about the top women of that class of NXT women, sometimes she gets looked over because Homegirl she's won a lot of championships, tag team, singles. Like she is up. I put her up there with Becky and Charlotte and Bayley and Sasha too. It's just that I feel like she always gets left out of the conversation because she's not the 4 horsewoman.
5 Feet of Fury.
But Team Little Big forever. But that is my number 3.
My number 3 is Ivory.
Which one?
See someone.
I was like, which iterate?
Both.
Yes.
Both
Yes.
Okay.
You want to watch someone who can take craptastic booking from the Attitude Era in the bra and panties era, still be the worker that basically could outwork everybody else, and take on people in the entire range from a very early or late in their career Sable all the way through to China and like Lita and Trish. Ivory was the one that held that division together. You needed someone to come up on Raw and do a women's match and make it look real. You got Ivory. You want someone to sell a schoolmarm persona and be against all things in the right to censor? You get Ivory. You want someone to be the valet that with Mark Henry when he's sexual chocolate and still be better on the mic than he is?
Oh, good
Fucking
knowledge.
Ivory.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
That is such a fun gimmick, bro.
I will go to town and say there are many other more famous people in that division. There are many more people that people remember. The bridge that held it together, honestly, in a way, and this is not degrading her, the Natalia of her entire time was Ivory in the Attitude Era.
Great. Hearing all of your picks, I'm changing my mind and moving all my things around. And this is someone who I didn't watch a lot of them during their second reiteration. I knew their original reiteration, and they've been in and out of wrestling in general, but they've been known to have one of the greatest personalities in the business, period, and be a spokeswoman for all wrestlers and wrestling in general, and that's Molly Holly. Molly Holly is just a genuinely cool person. Simon Miller did an interview with her not too long ago, I want to say, and it was just like, wow, you're just the nicest person ever. One of Dean Malenko's, I want to say Dean Malenko only had a handful of female proteges. I might be speaking out of pocket. I don't remember, but I know Molly Holly was one of them in the research that I looked at and what I remembered. Yeah, that's really, I'm trying to think of more specifics, but I know we're up against it. Just such a cool person. And someone that like we were talking about, in an era of bra and panties matches and subjugating women and treating them like objects.
Right.
Molly Holly. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me, it's hard to not like her because even outside of her wrestling character, she's like the sweetest thing ever.
Sweetest, nicest thing
She's
ever.
backstage trying to help the women get over. And lest we forget, she didn't argue. She agreed immediately when she lost the match to get her head shaved. She's just do it. Let's do this. Let's get these women division over. And so she was down to get her head shaved. I was like, you go, Molly Holly.
She was. I'm checking up my stuff right now, making sure of this. Yeah, she was a power plant. So WCW power plant protege came out of that too. So I'm checking out my bones here.
Oh yeah,
There's another.
She was one of Dean Malenko's only female students.
I was gonna say Dean Malenko had 3, and she was one of them because he was like, "Yeah, you need to come work with me and get through all this."
Yeah,
could probably do any move, anytime, to anyone, anywhere. Could work with anybody.
She trained with Sean Waltman as well because Sean was training with Dean Malenko at the time. So she, like, basically having the 1, 2, 3 kid as your partner, they were the two that he used to put into any scenario to teach people what to do.
Imagine those are your training partners. Just Molly Holly as a advocate and spokeswoman for all good that is women's wrestling. I think that's a fair pick.
Yeah. Number 2. No, it's number 3 for Minnie still. Number 3, Minnie.
Number 3, probably the greatest women's champion of all time, Santina Marella.
No,
I'm not going to go into too much because they've already been talked about. My number 3 is going to be AJ and Paige. That's my number 3.
Kind of intertwined.
Yeah.
Saying something.
Yeah, but Those are my number 3.
Yay.
No, number 2, Mikey.
Number 2, if you listen to previous episodes, I also think she doesn't get a lot of credit. And she was in WWE, and then you might find her on my other list later. But my number 2 is Mickie James. Mickie James for me in WWE, again, I feel like her and Trish and Lita are the 3 women that held down the women's division in that weird time of bra and panty matches in the early 2000s. To go from being the stalker character for Trish to having multiple women's and Divas Championship title reigns was just amazing. I respect the hell out of Mickie because she believes in women's wrestling so much. And granted, whatever problems you have with NWA, she was there for a very long time as a back for representing the women as far as getting them over, booking the women's division, building the women's division in NWA, and giving so many girls opportunities, up and comers to girls who are a little more well established. And for me, Mickie James can work really well with any opponent you give her, from Trish to Lita to her feuds with the likes of Melina. Her and Alexa Bliss went back and forth a couple of times. She had a match against Sasha Banks, which was a lot of fun. And I feel that in WE per se, people tend to overlook her just because of the fact, I think she's one of the few women that has found success in WE, but she also found success outside. So you may see Mickie come back up when we talk about her non-WE, because her recent Impact run, despite being injured and having to vacate the title, has been some of my favorites of her work. And I'm still upset the way that WWE treated her when she got released and the trash bag incident heard around the world. And then the fact that she got the last laugh by being able to come back for the Royal Rumble 2 years ago and be introduced as the Impact Knockouts champion in the WWE event. So it's amazing. But Mickie James, my number 2.
Awesome. My number 2 was originally going to be Chyna, and for a lot of the same reasons that May said, Chyna was up there. But I was thinking to myself, Chyna influenced all of them, and Chyna is, again, across the board, an amazing choice. But one of the influences that she had, and especially going into a period where women's wrestling was really into nothing, was Beth Phoenix. Beth Phoenix taking that role from Chyna, which had been brought in, and taking that powerful Amazonian, like, just feel and everything else in a time when there weren't a lot of competition. Victoria, Jazz, a couple of the others. Beth Phoenix carried that division for a while and had the chops to be with one of my other favorite wrestlers of all time, who was like my number 7 or 8, Santino Marella, for all that is. Like, goofy wrestling for life. That duo was amazing.
Beth Phoenix was also, like, she made do with whatever, her being partnered with Santino. She was Great Khali's lover at one point.
Yep.
I love the Glam Slam is Beth. I miss her on commentary.
Something that makes me really sad about women's wrestling is that I wasn't watching wrestling from 04 to 11.
What women's wrestling?
Fair, but
Right.
like a good chunk of Mickie James, for example. I didn't see them fighting. I knew, probably because to me it was, I'm not interested in divas and brown panties matches. I want to see wrestling stuff. Little did I know, years later, it was like, oh yeah, I didn't see this work, so I have to go back and watch a lot of this stuff. So if my picks seem dated, I apologize to the masses. But I'll do my homework, I promise. My number 2 pick, which is difficult because in my head, we're getting to that point where it's like you're making big decisions. My number 2 is Lita. Because I watched Lita growing up and the beginnings of Lita's career when wrestling was finally going, let's put the women on stage, was always interesting. The feuds were fantastic. I want to say that it must have been the first Edge Lita feud right in there. And I think even, dare I say, Val Venus, I think, is in there somewhere too. There's these weird, like, what the crap characters. There might even have been a sexual chocolate Mark Henry Lita storyline in there too somewhere at some point. But Lita being high flying and doing great matches all the time and still doing it all these years later. And it's Lita and Trish right there for me for various reasons, but I just always watched Lita, and there's this interesting moment when I see Lita now. It's just sort of, you're still there. Everything's going to be fine. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, you feel like you're at home.
Oh, hey, there's a through line there. All right. Fantastic. Cool. But I need to do my work on watch some of these matches of these performers you're talking about because I want to know more.
Minnie, number 2.
My number 2 is it's kind of stupid that I have another tie, but it's going to be between Bailey and Sasha Banks. Because back when I started getting back into wrestling and started paying attention to women's wrestling, they were being pushed super heavy, both of them. And they're both just incredible in-ring competitors. I watched a guy on YouTube, his name is Dr. Bo Hightower, does a lot of chiropractic / muscle work with a lot of combat sports athletes. And I watched the interview he did with Bailey. It made me love Bailey as a person. Watching what Sasha's doing right now as Mercedes on the outs, doing incredible things in other companies, showing that even our women that WWE produce can be some of the best wrestlers on the planet. And they're both kicking ass, taking names. Bailey has some of the best ring attire I've seen when she comes out, especially at Mania. She was really good. Her matches in NXT were phenomenal. Overall, just two incredible wrestlers, incredible people. Just awesome.
Amongst these boys, they probably already guessed who my number 1 is, and I've shared this story on numerous occasions. See, this is where it gets hard because there's so much women's talent across everywhere. I'm still upset. WWE was really stupid to let Taya Valkyrie go. But it's no surprise to the listening audience and to these boys. My number 1 is Bianca Belair. Here's the thing. It's not a surprise. And I'm going to share the story again because it's, for a lot of us here, professional wrestling is a form of entertainment. But for also, and this is why I love these boys here, these gentlemen, because there are moments in wrestling history that resonate with us and they just stick with us and help make it a part of our own life stories. So the reason I love Bianca Belair is for 2 reasons. Number 1, she is one of the first of the new class of NXT women, while it was still black and gold. To see her develop from the beginnings of NXT to where she is now is just like Bianca Belair is a star. And my favorite thing about her is that the last 3 WrestleManias that she's always does, and again, this might be a little eye-rolly for some people who don't get it, but the last 3 WrestleManias, her entrances she's always brought an aspect of her culture and her heritage. She's just all about the blackness, and I love that within her because she represents herself very well. From WrestleMania 2 years ago when she brought out the HBCU marching band, it was just amazing, to this year with the Compton dance team with all the little girls dancing her into her event, and her entrance at WrestleMania this year was amazing. But Bianca holds a special place in my heart because she and Sasha Banks main evented that WrestleMania in Tampa a couple years ago. And for me, this is a personal one because Bianca was part of one of the last memories I was able to make with my grandmother before she got sick and passed away a couple weeks shortly after that. Bianca versus Sasha was the last match that me and my grandma watched together because during the COVID times, my grandma would always come over and we would watch the pay-per-views, and she fell in love with the women's wrestlers as much as I did. Her first match, the first pay-per-view we watched together during that time was the War Games between the women's when Io Sky became Oscar the Grouch and jumped off in the trash can. That was her introduction to women's wrestling, and she's, I like these women's wrestlers. I'm like, me too, Grandma, me too. But Bianca holds that special place because she is part of probably one of the best times, and being able to have the last couple of months with my grandma before she passed was just enjoying women's wrestling together, which is weird because outside of myself, none of my other family members liked professional wrestling, and my grandma surprised me as one of those people who did. But then again, she's hardcore old school Mexican, so she watched like the old school like Mexican lucha libre stuff on TV and everything. So I was just like, damn, Grandma, like, how did I not know this? She's, oh, don't worry, mijo. Like, it's always there. So now I know where I get it from. So Bianca Belair is going to be my number 1, and I don't care what nobody says. She will probably always still be my number 1 because of how special she made that moment with me and my grandma and all the time we got to spend together, that important and that more memorable during the pandemic. So Bianca is my forever number 1.
Nice. My number 1 actually follows the professor's number 2. There were Trish fans, there were Mickey fans, all the things in there. I was a Lita fan. Always was a Lita fan. Still am a Lita fan. I watched live when she came out as S.A. Rios' valet and Hurricane Rana off the top rope, helping him win his first match on Heat. Like I remember that in the red pleather with the giant monster tag. There was Trish and all that stuff, and the clean cut girl who was also very much put together that way. There was Sable, the blonde bombshell. There was all these things, and then there was this red haired, tattooed, badass woman who could hang with the boys, who was part of the original Team Extreme, who threw herself into everything, and yes, had as scary a moonsault as Io Sky now, where you don't know if they're going to hit it correctly, but it is beautiful to watch. And the same thing, John, you're very right. Watching Lita even perform nowadays, like if I see Lita in a match, even if I'm worried she's going to botch a few things, I'm like, this is good. I'm in a good place. I am where I need to be. So my heart always to Lita.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just there's this sort of, and the Edge had this too at some time. This beautiful chaos sort of moment, that fine line of, oh, we're all gonna die. Oh, but that was beautiful. You're all in on all of that stuff. My number one, because I'm of that age and era, and I'll bring this back to Lita actually. My number one is China, because China made the world stop and listen and care. Because China was doing things that all of the old timers were saying, oh, you little girls, you can't, I bet you can't do this, but you can't do that. China shows up and is overhead pressing dudes. Bam! Monster slams. If you go back and watch China's power bombs, they are probably the most devastating and horrifying of any other wrestling performer of that time. Like when I think power bombs, I think Sid Vicious, and I think some of these other massive, whoa, that's 15 feet high, and look at this thing. China was trying to throw you through the earth. He's trying to remove your soul from your body every time. If you watch, I did a little bit of a deep dive. If you watch the 2001, I think it's Judgment Day or one of those, who knows what it is, where it's China and Lita fighting for some random championship. I'm not even sure. That match is insane.
Well, and
you're just waiting at any moment.
Bumping her ass off for China.
Oh, at any moment. Yeah, the selling is fantastic. China was the first woman in the Royal Rumble. Eliminates Mark Henry. We're back to sexual chocolate. 3 for 3. A hit. Everyone may or may not know the notorious story of China punching Mick Foley in the butt, as could not do the groin shot, and Mick Foley going, I don't know what just happened, and China going, yeah, I think my hand just disappeared into Mick's ass, just being there for these crazy ass moments. Tragic to hear about everything around her passing away and the final months of her life, which is devastating and hard to talk about and to mention, but was genuinely well liked and loved and taken care of, and everyone wanted to be around her and support her. It's just sometimes in this business, the tragic stories you can't avoid. And that's really heartbreaking. When you sometimes when you watch these China segments, which I watched a handful of them, and I remembered a few before just now, you're seeing it's China and Eddie Guerrero and the other wrestlers who've passed, and they're all right there. And for a brief 6 months, they were all in the same room at the same time, but it's ephemeral. I think China represents that, and China made it. I don't want to say made it cool, because it's not necessarily what I mean, but made us like, I demand you watch this. You will see us. We're gonna do this. And she socks the shit out of Mark Henry. If you have a chance to go see that, go watch it. She just barrels into him. That's my number one.
My number one is another modern one, Becky Lynch. She's my number one. My opinion, the best female wrestler of all time. She technical, incredible. She's hilarious. She's funny as hell. She's great on the mic. She's great in the ring. She's great as a person. Everybody loves her. She's orange hair, which is awesome. Her man gimmick was probably one of the coolest things ever. The stuff she does in the ring is like half the dudes can't do this. And she's out wrestling most everybody. She was part of one of the main events of the first female main event at WrestleMania. So that tells you how good she is as a performer and as a wrestler, as a ticket seller. I don't know what else will. Come on, she's also married to Seth frickin' Rollins, and they have the cutest relationship I've ever seen in my entire life.
They have a whole ass baby together.
That baby's gonna be the best wrestler of all time. Watch.
Of all time.
But they also look at her as a human being.
Oh my gosh.
Where she was crying backstage watching Sami Zayn.
Oh my gosh, that video killed me. I was like, she is the sweetest thing on the planet. Protect her at all costs.
Nobody could not smile. Even Roman, like it was really creepy. He smiled, but dude was smiling. Like nobody could not smile at that moment.
Yeah,
that was incredible. And it's just she's an incredible human being. Everybody loves her. She loves what she does. and she supports everybody. She's just awesome, and that is, in my opinion, people love. Granted, I watched during the time of Lita and Trish. I'd never liked Lita because I really liked Matt Hardy as a kid, and I was like, no.
Sure.
And watching John Cena roast the fuck out of her just made me really not like her, because Edge is the reason why I hated like heels. No, you're bad, and Lita was there, so
Sure.
I wasn't a big fan. But like Becky Lynch is like she is my top
There you
film.
go.
I can also try to speak with the professor on this too. It's also really cool to see a wrestler who studied clown before they went and became a wrestler.
Which I forgot about, and thank you for reminding me. I heard about that.
She went to clown school,
Yeah, was Barnum and Bailey learned all that stuff.
Right.
Oh.
which shows in her selling and her ability to work in the ring and whatever she does. Her physicality, it's all based in performance.
Can we also talk about how Becky has unintentionally has some of the greatest visual moments, like when her nose got busted up and she was bleeding all over the place, and that's what
Is this like the second time this happened?
No, the first time it happened is like the genesis of the man gimmick. But then when she was in her Kill Bill outfit at Night of Champions against Trish and just blood, I was just like, yes, that is the epitome of. Yeah, I was like, the epitome of Kill Bill. Her outfit was so good. That could be a whole nother episode.
Afterwards, she's covered in blood, crying at Sami Zayn's entrance.
Exactly. That could be a whole other episode too, where we talk about some of our favorite like wrestlers and their fashion game, because we need to. All right. Yeah.
I'm
feel like we could do a
I'm being
podcast.
summoned to help, so I gotta go.
Yes.
Summoned.
All
Being
right.
summoned.
Professor-
We need to revisit all the homework lists.
Yes.
And make this some sort of.
We will make this into a multi-part series, but Professor, if you're able to, I'll see you in 2 weeks, because we're supposed to be watching the Forbidden Door pay-per-view.
All right, I'm gonna make that happen. We'll figure that out.
I'm
Yes.
trying my best to do it from the plane.
You're gonna be on a plane?
Flying back
That's
from
right.
Chicago.
That's right. It's gonna be hella weird.
I'm going to try to see indie wrestling in Chicago when I'm there, though.
Yes, you better do it. Then I guess this is a good. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say there's indie promotions that are in like warehouses and dive bars all over the suburbs.
Oh, yeah.
They're out there.
My friends do the burlesque shows at them, so I want to go see them and then see the wrestling.
Oh my goodness.
We talk burlesque. We all know the same people. We know you guys, right? We know all this.
We can also. We're gonna have an after hours extra special for Patreon only, because I was like, I need to hear these stories, because
Oh, there's some stories.
JVL has promised me stories and I have yet to get them.
Well, we got to book a late night Patreon. Here's all the dirt stories. Please don't. No longer.
Here's what
running
I
for
can
public
remember
office.
of the night.
Exactly.
But I think this is a good stopping point, because I don't want to do this. I mean, I don't want to continue on without the professor, but I'm going to see if Adolfo can do like an addendum episode where whoever can join me, we get his top 5 male and female for WWE, because I want to hear his takes, because he's just important to all of this as the rest of us are. Like, I can't do this without you
If
four.
you leave now, your editing gets all messed up.
Don't leave now. Let me do the outro, and then please don't. Joff is doing this No! God damn it. Anyways, this has been another exciting episode of the Bi-Conics. Next regular episode, we'll be continuing on with our favorites in professional wrestling, but the next immediate thing is stay tuned for the Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast YouTube channel, where we will have a special video of us watching the Forbidden Door pay-per-view between AEW and New Japan. It's going to be a great time. Don't you fucking dare, JVL. I will come to your...
JVL, hold on.
No! God damn it!
It was never me. It was never me.
It has devolved into chaos. But to all of our listening audience out there, and viewing audience too, since this is a video cast, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Bi-Conics. Until next episode, we'll see you later. But until then, ta-ta for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, audio podcast land, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.